Hey, hello, welcome to the Fantasy Cast, Fantasy Cast Pod. This is a different episode. It's a compilation of all the chapters of The Friend, a 5-chapter story that I've snuck into the podcast. John and Nathan don't like it. They didn't want any part of it. They think it's a bad idea, but I put them all together as one big track to keep the content coming so that there's just more stuff to listen to, because I feel like there isn't enough out there and there should be more. So it's in 5 chapters recorded over the past couple months. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Fantasy Cast podcast, where 3 grown men pass the time by sharing their deepest, darkest fantasies. Here we go.
Have I told you of my friend? I get really self-conscious of my diction.
Mm-hmm.
Have I told you? You know what I mean?
Well,
Have
take
I
it,
told?
take your time. You can go over. You can go over whatever. Whatever.
Warm-ups? I'm just gonna go for it. Have I told you of my friend? It's unfit to even refer to them as a friend. It's likely your idea of a friend is someone you have dinner with, take vacations with, or play golf with. Yes, I have friends like that, but this one friend I'm speaking of is something else. We aren't related, we aren't sexual partners, and we don't work together. Yet we are eternally bonded through particular circumstances that I'm sure none of you can relate to. Is that why you despise me so much? Because I have what none of you have? What you all desperately desire to make sense of your life? A story. I have the story of my friend. My friend and I sealed our bond on a sailing trip during high school. That summer, our fathers conspired to turn us into men by forcing us to go sailing around Greece together. My father did this to me and it changed my life, my father said to me, and now you will do the same. We aren't a wealthy family, but I want you to be raised with wealthy values, because one day you will find that when all is lost, who you are is all that matters, not the women, the money, or how far you can blast, but you, who you are, where you came from. This trip, my son, will help you begin that journey. I knew my friend very little at that point. As children, we were somewhat close, but that ended when we attended different middle schools. We were a less wealthy family, and I was sent to a less expensive school. Because of this, I almost have the IQ of someone who went to a public school or Montessori school. Essentially brain damage, a problem I struggle with to this day. During the time I was separated from my friend, I heard many rumors about them. I heard that there were several incidents of him spazzing out at sleepovers. Another rumor was of my friend running out of the gym locker room naked, hiding himself in a closed-off section on their campus near an electrical generator, and lashing out at anyone that would try to get near him. They ended up having to shut down the entire electrical section of the neighborhood and used a fire hose to spray him out of the nook. When I was greeted by him on the boat, I could see that he had changed since grade school. He was on guard, had bags under his eyes, and had an icy demeanor. I had made the commitment to not let the rumors ruin my trip, as we would be spending the next several weeks together. So I pushed the stories out of my head. I remember our fathers waving at us as we unanchored our ship from the sea dock, and stared at them as they became tiny as ants until they disappeared into nothing. When I turned around from this entranced state, I found that my friend had receded to the cabin within the sailboat. He was unpacking his things, taking over the entire cabin where the 2 beds were. He threw a pillow at me and told me that I would have to sleep on the deck because other people near him scared him, especially when he was sleeping. I agreed because I didn't want to start any trouble. I wanted to tell him why I felt it was acceptable for him to claim the only shelter on the boat for several weeks, but he slammed the door in my face before I could do so. The trip was great. We wrestled a few times on deck as I challenged him to take over the cabin. It got out of hand a few times, but I finally claimed control of the sailboat when I held a pocket knife up to his throat. He can tell by the look in my eye that I would have slit his throat then and there if he did not yield to me. He began sobbing on the deck and explained that he didn't fit in anywhere. He had had an erection and was playing with himself while he was telling me about his feelings of alienation. This disgusted me, so I beat his ass some more and threw all of his shit out into the deck from the cabin as it belonged to me now and I could do whatever I wanted. This is my shit now, I said to him. There was one extremely heavy chest that I couldn't move. I opened it and found that it was full of pornography. My friend put his hand on my shoulders. I didn't hear him sneaking up behind me. I was shaking. I had never seen so many pictures of the most beautiful naked women. This was high quality pornography, so I was sure that the women who shared their God given forms with the photographers were unexploited and led fulfilling, unashamed lives that were full of love and joy. My friend lovingly shared his collection of pornography, and we spent many nights looking at the pictures under the stars. Our blood pressures rising with horniness, priming us for our visit to the final island, the one our fathers told us was where we were to become men. There on that island, we found that it was basically a brothel. I feel like moving the story along here. We don't really need to get into the details. We end up drunk in the place, and my friend and I go into separate rooms. Each one of us has been assigned a beautiful woman that we are attracted to and charmed by. The women made it clear that they were genuinely attracted to us and looked forward to sharing the most sacred form of intimacy with us, sexual intercourse. Just as my female partner and I were to begin our sexual exchange, I hear a pounding coming from the next room, the room where my friend was staying. Then I straight up hear someone tearing the place apart and a woman screaming. This guy is smashing a hole in the wall or something. Soon enough, a hole appears on my side of the wall, and my friend is using a heavy lamp to break a hole into the wall. His face is all red, and he doesn't even look at me. And my sexual partner, who I am sexually attracted to, no question, hands down, this person was hot. And I think about her beauty and presence every day, the smell of her hair, her eyes staring into mine, her head laying on my chest as I was breathing as the sun was rising. Once my friend finished making a huge hole in the wall, he takes his time moving the bed into just the right place where he can see us, me, and this female woman I'm sexually aroused by. And he begins having sex with a woman he is easily and mutually sexually attracted to. I'm like, okay, whatever. I didn't think of myself as this kind of person, but whatever. I'm sexually attracted to this person that is a woman. Let's just do this. This is cool. So essentially, we do it. Me and the woman I am sexually attracted to, and my friend has sex with the female woman he is attracted to. Fine, whatever. Weird, but whatever. This is what people do for each other. They compromise. This is what friends do. This is how you build something together. A lot of people now are so practical that basically don't understand how friendship works because everything in their lives is so desperate and hopeless, and everyone is fighting for resources that the idea of spending anything extra on someone that doesn't benefit your career or social standing is pointless. Sad. I could go on, but I won't. I don't have the time right now. We spend the rest of the trip having fun as friends do, telling jokes, taking in movies and music, watching TV on the boat, eating together. Then we return home, and I find out my aunt that we were never really close with has passed away. At the time, my friend was visiting us in our cottage in the wilderness, so he got roped into going to the funeral with us. No big deal. We are cracking jokes and goofing around in the car on the way there. My sister and my parents are all talking shit about the family members that will also be in attendance. We get there and do all the funeral stuff that rich pieces of shit at funerals do. My friend starts zeroing in on my cousin, squeezing my hand while he talks to her. She is clearly interested in him, and she invites us to smoke some weed in the shed on the property. My friend, me, my cousin, and a few other cousins all cram into the shed, and we smoke. One of the other cousins finds lawn darts and wants to throw them around in the yard, old-ass toys. I want to go too, but my friend wants me to stay while he makes out with my cousin. I say, I want to leave. I don't want to watch you making out with my cousin. I want to go and play darts on the lawn. But his face gets red, and I can tell he's going to throw a fit. He demands that I stay and puts his fist through a window. See, look what you've made me done now, he yells at me as blood drips down his hand. The cousin and I mend his wounds, and they start making out. She tells me to stick around if that's what he wants. I say okay. So I get into a chair and face it away from them. She's family, so what choice do I have? I put on headphones, playing my favorite tape at the time, Pearl Jam's Vitology. I don't see or hear anything, but I can feel the vibrations now and then, and the faint reflections and shadows on the wall in front of me. I know they are done when I see my cousin walking out of the shed. I look back and I see my friend is putting on his clothes with a big smile on his face. When we walk out of the shed, everyone is playing lawn darts and laughing, and no one seems to think anything weird has happened. We end up having a fun afternoon. As the sun sets, we all hang out in my female cousin's TV room and watch VHSs of movies we like, wrapped up in blankets, drinking soda, and snacking on leftovers. In the middle of the night, we're all sleeping, in the TV room, mind you, and I hear my friend and my cousin having sex again. My friend is holding my hand from the couch. I am on the floor in front of the couch. I don't know for how long he was doing it for. I try to pull my hand away, but he doesn't let me. He squeezes harder. I give in, figuring there's no way out of this situation without making a big deal. I hear my cousin and friend bust at the same time. Nice, I think, not bad. Poltergeist 3 is playing on the television. That fall, college began for us. I stayed in the city I was raised in like an absolute poor loser, and my friend went to New York, where smarter and braver people moved to. He wanted to go to my college so that we could be together, but his father threatened to literally murder him if he didn't get out of his house because he was so annoying. During the spring semester, I would get phone calls from my friend's number and only hear him panting, and I knew that he was having sex with someone in New York. I would hear them climax at the same time, and the phone would just click off. If I tried to hang up before then, he would just call me back over and over again until I listened to them climax. So I would be forced to accept the call and listen so my roommates wouldn't be kept up all night. During midterms, I fell behind on my cell phone bill. I was working 2 jobs and going to school full time and simply forgot to pay for it and had overdrafted my checking account. It would be a week before I can get my finances in order. How many phone calls had I missed from my friend? When my phone was finally put back into service, I received a call from my friend's father. Looking back, I knew it was inevitable. My friend was going to return sooner or later. I knew it the entire time we were apart. I just didn't know how or when exactly, and I never expected that he would be in the condition his father described to me on the phone that spring afternoon as I watched the sweat-shirted joggers crossing the lawn, the orange rays of sunset cutting through the trees and obliterating portions of the old college's building's details. He keeps asking for you, my friend's father said in a weary voice. You're the only one. You're the only one.
Oof. That's so powerful.
Thanks, man.
I think about how he needs you. He doesn't feel safe or secure, or he.
The Friend, Part 2. I keep getting messages from my friend on the phone. My phone kept vibrating in my pocket while I was taking final exams for the fall semester, distracting me. My prof asked me if everything was okay as I handed them my exam at their desk. Yes, I think I did okay. I'm having problems with my family, a family thing. My beautiful prof gazed at me behind her glasses, evaluating me, assessing the weight of my claim. Well, take care of yourself this winter. Inspiring to see your work as always. We stared at each other for a moment too long before I walked away. I walked through the halls, seeing my peers walking to their places as I listened to all of my friends' messages on my cell phone. There were dozens of them. They were all different versions of him panting, his mouth full of gauze, I imagined, and a tiny reoccurring sound of a woman's voice and panting, the beep of some hospital machinery mixed in. With the phone still in my ear, I waved at my friend Charles,
who was good-natured, pure of heart, walking with a dark-haired girl who had a pleasant smile and beautiful eyes. They were coming towards me down the hallway. I had a brief chat with Charles and was introduced to the girl, whose name was Tippy. She was Southern. I didn't pause the messages playing back to me or remove the phone from my ear while this all happened. My friend had broken his collarbone. His father was not giving me a lot of details, but I assumed it was because my phone was dead for a week or so, and so my friend couldn't blast, and this drove him completely insane. At the hospital, a tired, beautiful nurse gave me a smile as if she knew me. My friend was watching MMA on the television when I walked into his section. "Hello," he said to me with a big smile on his face in the middle of eating his lunch. "They tell me that I get to leave soon. I finally convinced them that I'm no longer a threat to myself or society." He chuckled. We grasped each other's inner forearms, the handshake of thieves to ensure there were no hidden daggers in our shirt sleeves, an inside joke between us. Sit, my friend told me. I sat and watched the two men on the television mashing each other's bodies, hitting each other, blood covering both of them. A bell rung and the round ended. "How's the food?" "That looks not that bad," I said. "My father brings this to me every day," he said. "Our favorite burger place. We used to go there when we would visit my mother." Not exactly happy times, but the burger place was a nice reprieve for my father and I. "Would you like a bite?" he asked, gesturing at me with the half-eaten burger that he held with both hands. I could tell that it was top shelf, not overworked like most burger places that strive to be more than they are. This was a burger that was made by someone who had been making it the right way for years, never varying from their initial vision and never outsourcing their labor to undocumented laborers that are indifferent to whoever envisioned their burger. I passed because I could tell that it was the kind of burger that you can't put down once you start it, because it was so robust and intimate in experience. My friend sighed. "I suppose I'll tell you what happened to me in New York." The bell rang on the television to start the next round. "Around the time that you stopped taking my calls," he said. "My phone service went out. I told you that," I interrupted. "Right," he said. "Right, when your service went out. I started to feel strange. This has happened a few times in my life. I get the feeling maybe you have heard the rumors about me. Most of them are half true, although I have never gone this far over the edge before. My mother used to say that so long as I still have friends and can enjoy a good meal, I will be healthy regardless of these situations I keep finding myself in." My friend somberly took a bite out of his cheeseburger. Bright sunlight made the room look blue. "I started going online and looking at the dark side of Craigslist, trying to find something, anyone that could help me. I needed to be..." My friend gulped, maybe some leftover food in his mouth. "Released," he said. "I couldn't sleep for days. I didn't go to class. I stayed in my dorm room, ordering food and drinking Mountain Dew and doing push-ups to stay awake and trying to call you. Friends invited me to a huge campus party. I asked them if there were private rooms to screw in, like a house or a frat house. They said no, so I passed. The party was in a big field. I had many correspondences going through online forums, and I was invited to a sex situation in a hotel. It seemed like it was made just for me. Plenty of cool people, that's what I like, and they would help me get my head straight, which I needed. In the hotel of the lobby, I met some of the people that I had had conversations with online." "Online," he laughed. "That cursed word. It should be called out of line because it is so foul and disgusting, simply beyond the pale. The people in the lobby brought me drinks and were hugging each other and using vibrators to stir their drinks and massage their faces, as if they were common tools that they used to perform normal tasks with all the time. I knew it was wrong, but I powered through. Maybe there would be cooler people to hang out in the room. We all went up, and on the elevator, the sex people started doing stuff to each other. Disgusting things. My body stiffened, and I just stared at myself in the reflection of the polished brass of the sliding door. I robotically walked down the hallway with the sex people and entered the hotel room. People were having sex everywhere. I hadn't showered in days, but it didn't matter. That's how rancid it smelled in there. I had a little bit of sex with someone and then moved on to another person and had a little bit of sex with them. Then I had sex with someone and something happened and a circle formed around me. They could see that I was in a desperate need of release. I closed my eyes and tried to remember better times, and for some reason, the mean face of a childhood bully kept appearing in my mind. Tony Ratterson, that name, that face, the boy who made my life a living hell in grade school. Try as I might, I couldn't get his image out of my head no matter how hard I shook it back and forth while having sexual intercourse with this stranger. Tony's face would not disappear. I opened my eyes, and my female partner was deep into the realms of pleasure. The crowd, now all wearing masks, stared, unaware of the mental situation I was subject to. I felt my loins begin to pulsate, and I began looking around frantically, the woman massaging my seeds. Without thinking, I pulled out before completion and hurled myself into the crowd, lifting up their masks. Looking for, my friend paused and stared out the window for a moment. Too long a moment. I don't know what I was looking for. Looking for whom I cannot say. Some stronger sex people subdued me and held me in the shower until I stopped struggling and began sobbing. Their pets and words of comfort did little to comfort me. I knew it was time to leave. I walked home, and I heard noise in the distance. I went to it, and I stumbled upon the party that my classmates had told me about earlier on. My penis was still erect. I met my friends near the beer keg. Oh, you would love the friends I made in college. Each one is a treasure and offers something unique in his or her own way. I'm not sure what I said. Maybe it was my smell, or I missed some social cue, but they began to look at me funny. It reminded me of Tony Ratterson, the way they were looking at me. And maybe it was the effect of the light coming from the bonfire, but they seemed to have transformed into Tony Ratterson. Something came over me, and I grabbed one of my friends and tried to throw them into the fire. I was screaming something. My throat is so sore. I've never had a throat this sore before. God, what you must think of me. What was I even screaming? I don't even remember. They restrained me, and I woke up in a helicopter on my way here. Maybe I'm not cut out for college. Or maybe it was that college. You know, they act different over there. All the old money, the way they talk, the things they value. Everything is about status there. My friend sighed. An MMA fighter had his hand raised by a referee on the TV. Joe Rogan began interviewing him over highlights of the fight. I couldn't tell the difference between the two fighters anymore. I think one of them seemed Puerto Rican. My friend finished his burger and fell asleep. I sat with him for a while with the TV turned low and walked out of the room. I nearly ran into a large middle-aged man who was friends with my father I recognized. Someone who had helped with legal stuff after my mother had passed away. He was surprised I was friends with my friend and told me that he was a client of his. He gave me the gist of the incident on the campus that matched up pretty closely with what my friend had told me, but I had only one question. What was it that my friend was screaming so hard that he lost his voice? I asked. Well, between you and me, the lawyer said, it's actually quite odd, and no one really knows what it means, and it doesn't seem like this will ever need to be on the record, but I'll tell you because we have been through a lot together. Many of the students in attendance claim that your friend was yelling something along the lines of, just let me spray. I just want to spray. Clown, clown. I just want to spray clown. The lawyer shook his head. I can't make heads or tails of it. Doesn't make any sense to me. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot. I saw parents getting into a car with their sore children who were eating suckers, covered in stickers. Elderly people being assisted by their middle-aged offspring. Technicians smoking. I didn't know it at the time, but I felt alone. A special type of alone. A type of aloneness that I don't think anyone I knew would ever feel. A car drove by on the way to exiting the parking lot, and it was blaring Creep by Radiohead. I turned on my car, pushed play on my CD player. The first notes of the Foo Fighters album started playing. It wasn't loud enough. I turned it louder. I wanted it to hurt. I wanted it to cleanse me. I wanted it to feel cleared out in a way that only heavy music can make me feel. I released the parking brake, left the parking lot, and just drove. It was the summer, and I had no place to be other than in that car, in that moment, with Dave, Pat, Tyler, and the rest of the band. This is my summer. This is going to be my summer with my friend.
Don't wanna be a monkey wrench. One more indecent accident. I'd rather leave than suffer this. I'll never be your monkey wrench.
So this is chapter 3, and things are picking up in the story. Chapter 3. Gotta relax. My friend returns home from the hospital, and we have a great summer together. One time, I'm driving, and I try to tell him that I think Tippy will be at the get-together at the bar we are going to later that night. Tippy is a southern girl. She and I have this thing together. After this, I can see in his eyes something has changed. He keeps lunging at the steering wheel and saying, "I'm Rick James, bitch," and trying to steer us off the road. Kind of joking, but kind of real. I distract him by telling him that this other person, named Samantha, will be there, also at this gathering at the bar. I tell my friend that I was telling Samantha about him, and I learned that they both sail, so they already have something in common.
These are the days when anything goes. Every day is a winding road.
At the bar, my friend, who was previously sweating and acting deranged, switches into a completely different person, and everyone likes him. The bartenders love him, and I notice that after he talks to them, I get the feeling that they now hate me. I found out years later that my friend told the bartenders that I was an asshole, and he was only hanging out with me because he was afraid I might hurt my family because I was so unhinged and cruel. I sit in the corner with Tippy, and our energy is off the charts. We have got it going on. Have you guys ever felt that way before about somebody? Probably not. Most of you have settled in life, or found that the person that you are marrying is just suitable and stable enough, and they would be a solid bet. Someone on the spectrum, or someone that's so beat down, or someone that's so down and out personality-wise that you can boss them around, and they won't put up too much of a fight. Go along to get along is their motto. You'll probably open up the relationship to a poly situation down the road, but anytime they get traction with a person, you shut it down and make them break up with that person, because this whole thing about being poly was about getting more people to worship you and how great you are. It's sad. Tippy and I noticed that Samantha and my friend are hitting it off as well. He is showing her how to play darts on the other side of the bar, standing behind her with one hand on her hip and the other guiding her dart-throwing form, whispering into her ear as she giggles. Tippy tells me how charming and electric he is. I bite my tongue, and I tell her that he has always been there for me, and in a way, we are brothers. Our bond is extremely strong. Later, we take the party back to Samantha's house, and a group of us drink and smoke there. My friend steals my car keys and tells me I can have them back after he is done having sex with Samantha in her bedroom. He is holding the keys in his mouth until he and her are done pleasuring each other sexually. So I sit next to Samantha's open door in the hallway as they are going at it, screaming at each other and changing positions repeatedly. I whittle the time away writing in my notepad, different story ideas I have, and just thoughts on life and the meaning of life in my musings on culture and politics. Tippy comes up to me and sits next to me and puts her head on my shoulder, and it feels natural, like she's been doing it for years. Most of you have never felt something like this. She peeks into the open doorway and takes a moment to understand their sexual position my friend and Samantha are in. Impressive, they are really going at it, she says. Tippy returns her head to my shoulder and asks me what I'm writing. I try to explain. It's hard, but I give her the gist. A moment passes, and I try to tell her about my friendship between my friend and I. I talk myself in circles.
trying to understand exactly what my friendship with my friend is. After what feels like an hour, I say, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. Tippy doesn't say anything. She just listens. I put my arm around her and she nestles into my chest, and we just sit there in the hallway while the party continues around us. My friend and Samantha loudly plow one another. People stumble past us in the hallway, and the world keeps turning, but we don't notice a thing.
Days are winding road. I get a little bit closer. Every day is a faded sign.
One day, my friend invites me to go to Six Flags with a woman he met online that he says will do him on a roller coaster, and he wants me nearby to witness the whole thing and to hold my hand. I initially agreed, but then I got a phone call from Tippy inviting me to meet with her and her good-natured friends at a bar. I tell my friend that I will just have to call him while he is getting greasy on the roller coaster. He isn't happy, but understands. I could tell that he is upset, and he hangs up on me mid-sentence. That night, Tippy and I have a wonderful time. After the bar gets out, we walk around at night holding hands and talking about positive things and making observations of the things we see, smell, and hear. We go to her apartment and make love, and something about it felt like home after I blasted inside of her. A lot of you guys wouldn't understand what this is like because sex is something you don't understand. You're closed off to your bodies, still in a Christian mind frame where sex is a sin, or you over-glamorize sex as a naughty and forbidden thing, believing it is akin to shoplifting or swearing. Things get serious between Tippy and I, so I have to tell my friend that I can't be around him having sex anymore. He records me all the time after that. Whenever we would hang out, the camera would be on me that he always had with him. He would rope me into a bathroom at a party, for example, and he would just shoot my head staring at the camera. He told me that it was for an experimental film he was making, something between Andy Warhol meets Terry Malick. I knew it was a lie. This person did not have a creative bone in his body. He never came up with an idea to save his life, and he certainly didn't have the follow-through to complete it. He was going to use it for sexual purposes. I just knew it. Sure enough, at a bar, a woman came up to me after staring at me from the other end of the bar for several hours. It told me that she finally realized where she recognized me from. She had had sex with my friend, and he had several televisions playing a loop of my face while he had sex with her. He held 2 remotes in his hands, she told me. She said that she was part of the sex community. And it was one of the most sexual things she had ever done concerning sex. I graduated college. Around this time, my friend sees how serious things have gotten between Tippy and I. So what does he do? He goes and finds a woman that basically looks identical to me but with a female body. We could have been related. They were Ukrainian. At our wedding, he is my best man. At this point, I noticed that he doesn't even know Tippy's name. I cannot recall him ever having mentioned her name, referring to her at any time, or even looking at her. To him, she is invisible. He tried to break us up a few times. Lame attempts of texting sexy messages to me from a different cell phone number when I was out on dates with Tippy. At times, when only he could have known we were out together. She didn't fall for it. Or my friend would hire beautiful sex workers to pretend that I was dating them on the side, and they would make a big scene in public by screaming at me, accusing me of being a two-faced cheat. Childish things. Things that reminded me that my friend was missing something. Something had happened to their brain along the way that stunted them from growing. At my wedding, we had a big after party at Tippy's family's house along the beach, and it was plain to see that my friend was going to be a handful. He was loudly arguing with his girlfriend, who he was trying to convince into getting a haircut just like mine. So she was crying on the lawn. People are trying to continue on having a good time, and my friend is drinking heavily and is shirtless, putting on songs on the iPad that no one likes, and making an act of having a genuinely good time. So I'm like, I guess I better deal with this. I tear him off of one of my cousins and try to feed him a glass of water. And then I notice that his penis is out, and he is exposing his penis not only to me, but everyone at the wedding. This is typically a big no-no and borderline illegal. One of my other friends, out of nowhere, starts spraying a garden hose at him. Tippy's parents are rich, so the garden hose is extremely powerful and is pushing my friend all over the lawn. They stop for a second, and my friend is on all fours, completely naked now that the hose has ripped off all of his clothes. His naked body is raw and red from the force of the water. He starts vomiting like a dog onto the grass, and so one of my other friends starts hosing him again, the vomit spraying back into his face and against the garden wall. I pull out a wad of cash and hand it to one of Tippy's housekeepers and tell them to take care of my friend. They escort him out of the party to prevent him from embarrassing himself further and to minimize him exposing his naked body to Tippy's relatives and children. We never talked about that. Now I would give anything to apologize to my friend, but it's too late now. Years have passed and so much has happened to us since that day. Thinking back on it now, I could say that this is the moment that everything changed. From that point on, things were set in motion that couldn't be stopped, and the story of my friend and I was locking in place, with either one of us powerless to stop what would come next. The scenes in public, the broken friendships, the spilled blood and heartache. Funny. Everything before this seems childish and harmless compared to what comes next. But for you to hear that, you'll just have to wait until I can summon the fortitude to revisit those moments. So please be patient with me. I have been through much and have seen so much a feather could snap me in two. But I promise I will finish because you, no, everyone needs to hear the story of my friend. Chapter 4. Tippy and I were happy newlyweds. Tippy's parents wanted us to have children, so they promised us a bunch of money if we decided to have children. To force us to have children, they sabotaged our lives as much as they could. Tippy's mother, father, and siblings would find ways to get us fired from any jobs we had, so we could not be financially independent from them. They would do whatever it took, call in bomb threats, beat us or our coworkers in a parking lot, hire sex workers to have sex either with us or in front of us while we were in charge of whatever stores we were working at that time. We can only get jobs at stores because they just ruined so many opportunities for us. This just made us stronger. We were like Romeo and Juliet at this time. Two lovers that said to hell with the world. Haters only made us stronger. Even though we didn't have any money, we didn't care. We had each other, and that's what really matters at the end of the day. What do you think about that, Nathan?
I love it.
Okay, cool. Even though we didn't have any money, we could afford a good loaf of bread, third wave coffee, and some middle-of-the-road bourgeois cheese. We would take it to the park wrapped up in a beach towel and have a picnic while leashless dogs ran all around us, shitting everywhere. Their owners seemingly robotic and jobless as we were. They were all wearing white baseball hats, sunglasses on, not seeming to care that we were trying to enjoy the park as it was intended, for human beings, not for dogs. We would lay there in the park and talk about our dreams, who we wanted to be, how we could do better, and listing the things that we were grateful for. Crying when we thought about the horror of the world around us. The robotic dog people, their SSRI'd out children, the demolition of in-person community, and the great minds we lost to social media. Sad. When we left the park, we always brought back a bouquet of dandelions. That's all we could afford. And we would put them in shot glasses with a little water because that's all we had at the time. Looking back, I would say it was almost heaven. This was until we had our first child, Randy. He was a boy with brown hair, and he was soon followed by Jamie, a biological girl with longer, sandier hair. Tippy's parents couldn't be more proud of us. It was a huge sacrifice. Neither one of us could go to Costco anymore or do things that people do with no children to feel fulfilled, like do cocaine in our 40s.
write and publish a novel that no one wants to finish, or all sorts of other shit that one instantly forgets about the second they have to take care of a human being that you love more than yourself. There we were, living like normal people, fulfilled, and finally having a place to call home. And where was my friend during all of this? Oh, he was around. He would stop by once in a while, shark-eyed, nervous energy. When he stared at you, he focused on your ear so he didn't actually have to make eye contact with you. He would bring his flavor of the week with him every time he would visit. One time he brought someone that looked literally identical to me, and I only realized now how bizarre it was. I guess it was a man that had surgery to look like me. I really can't sort it out in my mind. It just happened and I moved on, and it's just very odd. Around this time, I was working at a firm that worked on corporate matters. I wore a suit and had an office that overlooked the city. The office was made out of glass. Tippy would dress up like a food delivery person and visit me in my office. I would close all the curtains and we would have sex with each other. First we would make out while undressing one another. Then she would go down on me. Then I would go down on her. Then we would be going down on each other at the same time. Then she would lay on the couch and I would enter her. We would be hugging and kissing each other, me on top, her underneath. Then we would switch. She would be on top and I would be underneath. Then from behind a little bit, then side by side from behind because it was more comfortable and we could do it slower. Then back with me on top, us hugging and climaxing at the same time. Our bodies red from the passion and exertion. We would do this often. What'd you think about that?
That's really hot.
Thanks, man. One day, my friend's dad scheduled a meeting with me in my office building. He wanted to talk about something important. My friend's dad told me that my friend needed a job because he was starting to spiral out of control, spending his money on foolish things like sex workers and alcohol. I asked him finally what my friend's problem was. Why was he like this? What's his deal? He told me that my friend was just hitting puberty when his mother fell ill and was hospitalized for a long time. My friend's father went on. During this time, this is him talking. During this time, we were both scared, and so I wanted my son to have a normal time as a child. So I hired a sex worker to play the role of his mother for a while. He was terrified of this woman's energy and her makeup, so I made her wear his mother's clothing. This helped a little bit, but it still wasn't enough. I took him to an amusement park with his stand-in mother. He was always afraid of roller coasters, and I figured it would be good for his self-esteem if he got over his fear with us. Sitting between the two of us, the sex worker dressed as his mother, and I rode the roller coaster for the first time.
Across the water, across the way.
I remember the sex worker in a state of fear, so she impulsively made out with me as the roller coaster climbed the ramp, my son squeezing my hand while we got closer and closer to the top of the roller coaster part. He was screaming so hard. Both of them were terrified. When we got off the roller coaster, I received a phone call that his mother had passed away. He was in shock. We rushed to the hospital, but everything was a blur after that. The roller coaster was the last thing I remember of that time. Oh well, maybe that will be useful to you. I must go now, his father said. I gave my friend a position as a mailroom person. He would cart around a cart of mail that he would hand to the people that worked for me. One day, while I was having sexual intercourse with my beautiful wife, I saw that she wasn't paying attention to me. She was staring off into the distance at something. I turned and I found that my friend was now in the room with us. I was shocked and almost pulled out of my wife, who refused to let me go. She asked me if we should go through with it, do it in front of him, or with him. I continued on. But something was wrong. It didn't feel right. I pulled out, and my wife started crying and screaming.
I stood in the corner and yelled at my friend while finishing myself off into the plant in the corner. I told him that he had invaded my privacy and that he should go. Then he left and I started screaming at my wife, asking her if I wasn't enough for her. Did she want to do my friend as well? She said that she just wanted to make me happy. I said, if you wanted to make me happy, maybe you should just get out of here. This upset Tippy a lot. She drove home. I watched her drive out of the office parking lot from my office window. So what if the other people could see my naked body? What did it matter? This is how God made me. And there I stood, with my penis, still wet from the sexual intercourse with my wife, cooling in the air conditioning of my office. When I returned home, no one was there. The house was not filled with my family, my wife, my 2 children. Where were they? I made a sandwich. High quality fresh whole wheat bread, a thick layer of mayonnaise on one side, a sprinkle of crushed red pepper on top of that. Next came a portion of sliced turkey, a healthy portion, cheddar cheese, iceberg lettuce, pickled red onion. Top off with another slice of bread that had sweet horseradish on it. I bit into the sandwich. Yes, it was pretty good, but it was missing something. Oh yes, plain rippled potato chips. And a mini can of Coca-Cola. I took my first sip. This first sip, right after a bite of that sandwich and some of the chips, my God, this really was perfection. Ice cold, sweet, refreshing, and sparkling. Damn, that is good. Then the door knocked. Who could it be? I walked to the door, checking my phone again. Nothing. And then time slowed down. My limbs went numb, and I had a hard time hearing anything. 2 police officers with solemn faces stood in my doorway. And my life, as I knew it, fell apart when they spoke. There had been a serious car accident. They wanted me to go with them. I dropped the plate of the delicious sandwich and the chips from my left hand. Then I dropped the can of Coca-Cola from my right hand. It fell in slow motion as my legs gave out, and everything, I mean everything, went black.
That's good.
Thanks, man.
Really enjoyed that. It just keeps getting hotter and hotter.
The Friend, Chapter 5. Tippy's father talked to me. He was a white man, so I was suspicious to take anything he said seriously. But I found that he was not only wise, but also was able to offer me insight into my life at the time. He had just lost his daughter and granddaughter, just as I had lost my wife and children, so we had much grieving in common. Yes, it was true that he was white, strike 1, and old, strike 2, and was a heterosexual, strike 3. You're out of here as far as I'm concerned. But still, even after all of that, I found that he had life experience that I didn't have, and I found myself able to be comforted by him. He told me that the people responsible for the death of my wife and children in the car accident would be taken care of because the police obviously weren't going to do anything. It was becoming clear that Tippy's father was connected to organized crime. It all made sense now. All the money they had, the way they acted to each other, the big-ass houses that they had, their emphasis on family and loyalty. Within the next few days, the reckless drivers that had caused the fatal accident to my family were picked off one by one in mysterious ways. The police thought I was killing them, but I told them that maybe if they stopped people from driving so bad instead of harassing people that are just trying to grieve and survive in an already sad and oppressive world, then maybe there would be less death in the world, less indignity, less pressure all over. If only there were people that we all collectively paid for with our taxes that subjected the public to the smallest amount of incentive to maybe try the tiniest amount of sustaining life on the road. In any case, the news I was obsessively looking at the time showed me that people involved in the car accident that took my family from me were being picked off one by one. Freak accidents, like they houses blowing up, or they cars blowing up mysteriously. I put the pieces together and realized that Tippy's father was in fact involved with organized crime, and could be deadly if he chose to be. At the first funeral for one of my kids, things went according to plan. I found that my friend was actually very helpful and a source of comfort, even though he was hitting on any and all women at the funeral to have sex with, so that I could look on, of course. I had resigned to doing this for him again at the time, as I needed the friendship. Furthermore, I was surprised to find that once we were around each other more, his obsession with having sex with people that looked like me went away, and he was attracted to conventionally attractive women again. Women with compelling features, warm personalities, figures that we both found appealing. Yes, I was present with him when he had sex with these women in a single-family house I was renting at the time. My old house that I had built with Tippy and the children was too painful to be in, you see, so we decided to stay in this other place I was just telling you about. At the next funeral for my other kid, Tippy's father took me aside and told me that having friends is very important, but that there are going to be certain women at this second funeral that were the girlfriends of organized crime people, so my friend should not have sex with them because they would have to kill me or my friend if either one of us decided to have sexual intercourse with any of them. I told my friend to watch out for these women and to stay far away from them. My friend tried his best to contain himself during the funeral, and I even had to intervene when Tippy's father gestured with wild eyes towards my friend during the funeral. My friend was chatting it up with a dark-haired woman who was attractive. I understood what was happening. My friend was chatting with the mafia member's girlfriend, so I told my friend that he had to abandon trying to have sexual intercourse with this woman because he would have to be murdered by the mafia members if they ended up having sex together. Does that make sense? He understood and walked away, blank-faced, when I told him this. He did not look at me, and he just went on to the next woman that was nearest us and started hitting on them. I had to tell him a couple more times not to communicate with a few other women who were the girlfriends of mafia members. Not a real big deal, because I knew sure enough later that night I would be sitting in the doorway like old times while my friend was having sexual intercourse with some strange beautiful woman, me glancing back over my shoulder and occasionally smiling at my friend while I hugged framed pictures of my deceased family, rocking back and forth. Struggling to make sense of the new world I was living in while oldies and doo-wop played on the old record player in the living room. There was a few weeks before the final funeral for Tippy. This was kind of where everything changed in a way. I remember going to the Target because I needed more white t-shirts, underwear, and a new shower curtain and new pillowcases. While looking for the right kind, I found that I was hungry, so I went to the Starbucks that was inside the Target and ordered a sandwich wrap. It was okay. Not great, but okay. I found that the wrap made me a little bit dry and sluggish, so I decided that I would treat myself to a ridiculous drink. I normally exclusively drink only third wave coffee. Dunkin' Donuts is not good. McDonald's coffee sucks too. Don't try to tell me that it's good. You know that it's not good. It sucks, and it's not cute, and it's not funny that you like it. It's garbage, and if you drink that, you're a clown. So drop dead, rest in piss, and fuck you, you loser. I ordered a spicy mint latte or something that was the special of the day. Added whipped cream and an extra shot, and I also bought a Bear Claw. I walked around the Target while sipping the amazing drink and munching on this delicious Bear Claw. Extremely sweet and over the top. I found myself laughing at myself as I walked around the Target. It was in a nicer neighborhood, so it had a very pristine and clean feeling. The walls of the bathroom, you could tell, were never smeared with feces, and I got the sense that the women at this Target were never afraid to go to the restroom alone. I was feeling fine after a quarter of the drink I ordered, and was almost scared of what would happen if I finished the whole thing. I need some coffee. Hold on. It was a 2-story Target, and so I had fun watching my shopping cart riding up on its own escalator alongside of me, giggling, watching my Starbucks drink and Bear Claw go on its own little journey. Have you seen these things? They're incredible. It's an escalator for carts. I waited at the top of the escalator for my shopping cart to meet me. It felt like an old friend I was picking up at the airport, or a baby that was learning to walk that I was being reunited with. I caught myself squealing and holding the giant drink in the air over my head, holding it with both hands, while I twirled and did a kind of dance when the cart reached my level. I looked around at the book section, which I always do, but I was always too chicken to buy any of the books there. I was usually too afraid I would buy something and I wouldn't read it, and the book would stick around forever in my house, haunting me, teasing me every time I looked at it, making me feel ashamed and stupid. Something about how I was feeling on this day was different. There were a few new thrillers and mysteries written by female authors that looked fun to own. So I said, to hell with it, let's do this, and popped a few into my cart, even though I couldn't read the titles because I was so wired. My eyes were darting all over the place of their own accord. So I picked the ones that seemed like they had the best cover design and texture. I noticed some cool looking teens out of the corner of my eye buying some manga, so after they scuttled away, I bought what they bought to see what the big deal was. It looked like hundreds and hundreds of pages of people screaming and scratchy lines, but I bought it anyways. I also bought a Bruno Mars vinyl and the vinyls of a Metallica band and this band called Slipknot. I was feeling light, but with a slight headache from the coffee drink and the Bear Claw. The lights of the Target were so bright and pure I felt like they were shooting radiation that was scrubbing me of anything bad that was inside of my body. There was a beautiful woman my age with red hair and a serious face, wearing black jeans and black t-shirt tucked into the pants, and she had red shoes on and she seemed cool. She was looking at clothes in the women's section. I followed her around for a while as I sipped my Starbucks drink. She made eye contact with me and smiled and raised her eyebrows as if to say, "What's up?" I just shrugged and smiled without taking the straw out of my lips or blinking. My eyes felt huge at the time. She gestured with her hand to follow her to the dressing room section. She picked out some clothes, told me to sit just outside the dressing room door on the floor while she tried them on and asked me which ones I liked. She gave me quite a show, and I loved watching her put on interesting outfits that I never would have thought of in a million years. They all looked so cool and good, and I told her that they all made her look beautiful, but especially when she smiled. She said that she was having a hard time taking one of her outfits off, and told me to enter the actual changing room with her. I helped her get the outfit off, and she turned around and we embraced and kissed each other. We passionately made out for a while and had sexual intercourse in the dressing room, standing up face to face, looking at each other's faces, our hands on the sides of each other's faces, occasionally kissing and then pulling away to look at each other while we were having sex, crying at moments because we were both so scared and turned on. When we both finished, she said that she had to go meet her other female friends, of which she had strong bonds with, mutual respect for, and zero competitive feelings toward. They all cared for each other and were all equal to one another and would spend the rest of their lives together as friends while also having strong families of their own. I walked to the electronics section and played a new video game for a bit. A man my age walked next to me and stood behind me and acted like he was watching a sports game while I played, hooting and hollering depending on what was going on the screen. He said that the video game looked good and commented on how we looked like we were similar in age and probably have a lot in common and similar views of the world. He invited me to a barbecue he was having later that week and that it would be nice to see me there. I was definitely going to hang out with this new friend. I sat in some lawn furniture that was on display, waiting for my crotch to completely dry, drinking the last of the Starbucks drink, and read some of the thriller I bought. Pretty good so far. I can definitely see myself getting swept up in this world that the author was creating, even though I was not a biracial cyber detective that only had sex for my own pleasure and had survived an abusive girlfriend and had a mother with Alzheimer's. Very excited to read more of it. I could tell that it was going to occupy me for the next few days and flavor the memories that I was making at that time. Then I got home. There was a single chair in the living room with a mattress in front of it. All of the other furniture had been moved to another room. My friend was there with two beautiful women. He had set up a scenario where the second I walked through the door, they would all begin having sex with each other. I don't know how long they were standing there waiting for me to return, but they were all naked and ready to go. They began their sexual intercourse, and I realized something then. My friend didn't ask me how I was doing. He didn't ask me if I wanted to eat something. He didn't offer me a glass of water. He didn't ask me anything about myself. He didn't ask me about my day. I'm the one always asking him questions, listening to his opinions on things. Do you know anyone like this? It's very annoying. I was not a human being to my friend, I realized at that point. So I sat there while my friend had sex with two beautiful women, but I went somewhere else in my mind. I thought about my great day at the Target, the beautiful woman I had met and had sexual intercourse with in the dressing room. I thought about the mystery and thrillers that I had bought. I wondered about what the manga was and why people like it. I thought about how great it would be to listen to the new Bruno Mars album with a good pair of headphones. I think I was done with my friend at that point. I would spend the next week enduring the bombardment of situations of him having sex with people in front of me. The second I woke up until the moment I went to sleep, my friend was present with me, having sex with different beautiful women in the car, in the breakfast nook while I was going potty, everywhere. I could not get away from him and his women. There was a coating of oil from the sex he was having around me that misted all over my skin, and I didn't realize I was covered in it until I took a shower. I could see swirls of makeup, lube, sweat, and other goop, and other people's hair funneling down the drain. I knew I had to endure it to find a way to get clean of the situation when I got the chance. The chance came to me at Tippy's funeral. I caught my ex-father-in-law with connections to organized crime glaring at me from across the room in the funeral home, which could only mean one thing. My friend was hitting on one of the organized crime guys' wives or girlfriends at the funeral. I walked up to my friend and whispered in his ear. His face went white. His mouth opened, and he walked away from the woman, his hand shaking so hard his cocktail was splashing all over the floor. Tippy's father gave me a nod of approval and a fist in solidarity. Later that night in our place, I laid a tarp on the floor and made sure my video camera was charged up. When the doorbell rang, it was the woman from the funeral that was the girlfriend of one of Tippy's father's organized crime guys. She was a brunette and was wearing purple lingerie under a trench coat. My friend sat in the middle of the tarp and was aroused and ready. I led the woman to the friend and we made a POV-style porno movie together. I finally had sex with a beautiful stranger together with my friend, who I found to be very emotional during the whole process, crying and had to leave a couple times because he was hyperventilating. I never took the camera off my friend's face, and would sometimes be having sex with a woman, but videotaping my friend in the other room, pacing back and forth, trying to catch his breath. But I got a lot of exciting things from the footage, nonetheless. All in all, it was a pretty good porno. This woman was extremely beautiful, and the love we made was passionate, arousing, intense, and tender. One day after that, I came home to our house we were using at the time, and my friend wasn't there. His room was just as it always was. Just a bare mattress, a television, a box of Kleenex, and a collection of poetry books strewn across the floor. My friend never came back. I never saw him again. I saw the woman that we both had sex with in line at the pharmacy, and she quickly left the store in a rush when she saw that I was behind her. You see, I had mailed the video of all of us having sex together to her boyfriend, a friend of Tippy's father who was connected to organized crime. I awaited and welcomed my own murder at their hands, never looking in the back seat of my car, just plopping right down in the driver's seat, expecting to be strangled or shot in the back of the head by a mafia hitman waiting for me there. But it never happened. I sold my 2 houses and my cars for a motorcycle and moved to the desert. My ex-father-in-law sent me a package that contained a newspaper. A small note said, "You're clear. As for your friend, ... Then I looked at the newspaper. A few pages in, there showed an article about my friend being found washed ashore, dead from drowning. No foul play was suspected, but I knew that the mafia had killed him because of what I had done. After that time in my life was put behind me, I found that I was now sexually attracted to completely different people. Women with dark hair, glasses, that smoked and read books. I know it sounds weird, but something changed in me. I actually like it when it rains now. Usually the rain would make me sad because I couldn't go outside to play or go to the park. I wear darker clothes now. I listen to music that most people would be scared of. I look at myself in the mirror and notice that I kind of look different, skinnier, darker, more real, authentic now that I murdered my friend, basically. I was living in an adobo-style cottage at that time, having sex with different women that were interested in weird things, internet stuff, books about the media, provocative podcasts, and other timely things that people do at the time to signal that they were a certain way that was definitely not normal. These women would be fascinated with me because I was mysterious and emotionally unavailable but horny. I had stubble at the time often and lifted weights to have a nice figure for them. One day, another mail came to me. It was from my friend's father. He told me that my friend had left me everything that he had owned when he died. Very nice. I now have all of his money. There was also a note from him that said that I was his best friend. You were always my best friend. And that he liked me watching him have sex with people because he was always afraid that if I wasn't watching him have sex with women, then he would feel sad that I wasn't enjoying what he was enjoying. And that made him feel alone inside.
I'm so happy that you watched me have sex so many damn times. That was special to me.
He even admitted that on a level he knew I didn't really enjoy watching him have sex that much, but that he couldn't stop himself. He had a problem. He admitted
How many
this.
times have you watched me have sex? Not enough, if you ask me. I love the way you watch me have sex. Always have.
And also that his parents failed to raise him right. That his parents had failed and that they should be to blame for spoiling him and not forcing him to realize that you can't live in a fantasy world all your life. They were to blame, and I agreed with him.
It's my parents' fault. They didn't raise me right. They were narcissists. Dang. It's a damn problem. I know it's wrong. Still, though, I do treasure our time. I love you. I do.
The different dark-haired women with glasses, some of them pale, that I have relationships with will never get the whole picture. They will never understand fully my friend, no matter how many times I tried to explain to them our relationship, how many times I watched him have sex. They will never understand that that feeling can never be felt again. It was a living thing between the two of us that would have never ended if I didn't have him get murdered by the mafia. When I make sex with them, these weird women, I feel my friend watching behind me because I believe he is a ghost now. I sometimes reach back and try to grab his hand while having sexual intercourse, and sometimes I swear I can feel him hold my hand and feel him smiling, eyes squinting, and mouth in a smiling shape, his head upturned like he's going a million miles on the highway in a convertible with the top down. Pure ecstasy. Picture this. A dark-haired woman stares at me at the kitchen table, her diary in her lap, a cigarette burning in an ashtray. I am a silhouette in the doorway. What am I staring at silently as the sun sets in the desert? I'm slowly rubbing my chest. A few minutes pass. I put on my earbuds. Connected, the earbuds say to me. I slide on my helmet, my bike riding gloves. The dark-haired woman sees me straddle my motorcycle. I rev it a few times. I look back through the tinted visor at her. I turned away. I pound on the gas, sending gravel spraying behind me, and I am off, headed full speed into the shadows of the mountains in the distance. My headlight broken from the last time I had a spell like this and went for a nighttime drive, the only thing that can make my heart stop racing when I get like this. My friend visited me in a dream recently while I was on vacation in the Bahamas with two strong and strange women. In the dream, everyone was getting ready for a big party. There were caterers and people hanging decorations all over the house. My family was running around cooking and yelling at each other. We were at my parents' old house, where my friend and I used to hang out a lot. He came in the doorway and was holding car keys. He said that he can only stop by for a second because he had to go return his car because he had just come back from a long road trip. He said he was very tired as people were running around the house and getting ready for this big event. My friend and I ended up upstairs in my old bedroom, and I was showing him this rubber glowing toy I had that you do a trick with. We both tried it, and it was hard to pull off and kept falling on the floor. I was following my friend down the stairs, and he was telling me about how he might be late to the event tonight because he was tied up with some other things he had to do for his father. I told him I wanted to give him a cupcake from the fridge, and I told him to wait. And when I returned to the front porch to give it to him, I saw his car driving away. The muffler was dangling off the bottom of the car, and he was waving goodbye to my mother, who was at the end of the long gravel driveway. Then his car disappeared behind some plants and bushes as he sped off. When I have sex now, I look back in the mirror and look at myself, and I think I'm close to figuring out why my friend liked me watching him have sex so much. I have big, pleasant eyes, with extremely blue irises, a naturally reassuring face, and an interesting bone structure. I struggle to keep my face placid and calm like I used to when I would watch my friend when he was having sex. It is a struggle, but I think I'm getting closer to seeing what my friend saw in me. And that's the story of my friend. May he rest in peace. Although he isn't dead. Not really. He is in heaven along with the rest of my deceased friends and family. Mock my beliefs in heaven, my beliefs in spirituality, the afterlife, or a higher power. I know it is foolish. It is what a fool believes, and I want you to know that I am in fact a fool. When I die, falling to the floor in my trailer after a visit from my daughter, blood pouring out of my head as I scream for the Alexa to call the police. The Alexa misunderstands me and plays a Spotify playlist of the Police, the band, and my light fades in the middle of do do do, da da da. When that happens, I will return to my friend, my family, and all the others, enemies even, and we will look down on those left living, those suffering, churning, and yearning, and we will send them love, whether they are speaking to us or not. I can't wait to be up there. I can't wait to die.
Someone else.